Thank you very much for joining me today and good afternoon. Today's wellness webinar will be on cholesterol. So we'll be looking at the difference between good and bad cholesterol, their food sources, the impact cholesterol can have on our heart health, and how stress can also affect our cholesterol levels. Just by a bit of background, my name's Lottie Jones and I am in the ESS Nutrition and Wellbeing team. So here is what we will be talking about today, just in a bit more detail. So starting with what cholesterol is and understanding the two different types, where it can be found, and then we'll be looking at stress and how that can impact our cholesterol levels, physical activity, and then the benefits of physical activity on a healthy heart, and how we can eat for a healthier heart, and some simple steps to take away. So, firstly, what is cholesterol? I'm sure it's a word we've all heard. You may have even been told by your doctor that you've got high cholesterol, but what does that actually mean? So, cholesterol is a natural fatty substance which is found in your blood and it's produced in our liver, and it's very important to help keep our cells in our body healthy. So, there are two types of cholesterol. First, you have LDL cholesterol, so low density lipoproteins, and these are also known as bad cholesterol. So, these are the ones that can build up in our arteries and increase our risk of heart disease. We then have the HDL cholesterol. So, this is what we want to be eating more of, as these can actually help to remove the excess LDL cholesterol from the bloodstream. So, these are known as good cholesterol. Did you know that about 1 in 2 adults have high cholesterol? So that's about 56% for men, and it's slightly higher with 61% in women. So half of us essentially have high cholesterol. But how do we know if we might have it? So there's some factors we can control and some factors that we can't control. So factors you can control include things like eating too much saturated fat, being physically inactive, so not partaking in much exercise, if you are a smoker, or if you are overweight. Factors we can't control are things like getting older, whether you're male or female. So obviously the risk can differ in both. During and after the menopause, your risk of having high cholesterol also increased, and your family history. So whether high cholesterol runs in the family. You're also more likely to have high cholesterol if you have kidney or liver disease, type 2 diabetes, and underactive thyroid. So we've spoken about possibly having high cholesterol, but how do we go about finding out whether we do have high cholesterol? So there aren't any symptoms, and you'll only know after having a blood test. So this can be in the form of a blood test in your arm or a finger prick blood test. And this can be carried out by your GP or in your local surgery or by a nurse. So I've just put on what the different levels are. You don't need to memorize this off by heart, but essentially you'll get 3 different results. So you'll have your total cholesterol, which if it's below 5 millimoles per litre, that's fine. That's a healthy level, and that's the overall amount of cholesterol in your blood. You then have the measurement for HDL cholesterol. So this is the good cholesterol. This is the one that we want to have more of. And you can see the levels there slightly different for men and women. And this can indicate whether you are more or less likely to have heart problems or a stroke. And then the last one is the non-HDL, so essentially the bad cholesterol. And that's the difference between our total and our good cholesterol. So we want that to always be under 4 millimoles. But again, if you do get referred to have a blood test at your GP or at your doctor's surgery, they'll talk you through all the results and what they mean. You can also ask your GP for a blood test if you've not had one before, if you are over 40, if you're overweight, or if heart problems run in your family. These are all kind of risk factors that might increase your risk of developing high cholesterol. And with high cholesterol, this can lead to heart problems. So obviously we want to get that diagnosed as early as possible. So next we'll talk a bit about foods. So foods which can raise cholesterol. So essentially it's the excess consumption of saturated fat which can raise our blood cholesterol. So on the slide here, I have got the Eat Well guide. So essentially, this is everything we should be eating across the day. So what our plate should look like at every mealtime. Doesn't matter if every meal doesn't look like this. For example, it's quite a bit harder to get vegetables in at breakfast, but so long as across the day this is what you're making up your diet with, you should be having a healthy, balanced diet. The items which are often high in saturated fat, I've listed some of them there, but they fatty cuts of meat. So in your pink section for proteins, you've got your blue section for dairy and alternatives, so things like cream, pastries, also cheese, especially hard cheese, things like cheddar. You can get low fat versions. So if you are someone that has high cholesterol or your cholesterol is on the upper end, I would advise you to maybe be going for the lower fat options. And then also we have our carbohydrate section. So that's the yellow section, and carbohydrates are what give us our energy. But things like pastries, which can be really high in butter, cakes, biscuits, chocolate confectionery, these sit outside the plate. So you can see them on the bottom left-hand corner. And essentially that is because we should be eating less of these and in smaller amounts and less often. So that's just an idea of kind of what your diet should be looking like across the day, trying to get 5 portions of fruit and vegetables, and where you might find products which are higher in saturated fat. One section which I didn't mention, but I've brought up on the screen here, is the oils and spreads section. So this is the smallest section on the plate. And generally, as a population, we are eating too much, especially saturated fat. And here we want to be opting for our unsaturated fat. So that's things in the purple column. So these are items like olive oil, rapeseed oil, sunflower oil, nuts. Avocados are a really good source of unsaturated fats, and also oily fish. So things like salmon, mackerel, herrings, trout as well. And then you have your saturated fats. So these are what we kind of want to be trying to avoid. Things like butter, lard. I mentioned fatty meats on the previous slide, also full fat dairy. Coconut milk and palm oil, coconut oil and palm oil are two others to notice. Often people really enjoy cooking with coconut oil, and it's been very popular over the past few years, lots of people including it in their recipes. However, coconut oil is a saturated fat, so it can increase our blood cholesterol, and that can increase our risk factor for heart disease. So if you are someone that likes to cook with coconut oil, just bear this in mind when you're looking at your diet as a whole and what your other fat sources are. We want to be replacing those saturated fats with unsaturated fats, as this can help to maintain our normal blood cholesterol levels. And of course, we should only be using small amounts of these. So then I've got some different foods to help with our cholesterol levels. So first we have purple foods. So I've got things like berries. These are rich in something called anthocyanins, and these may help to increase our HDL levels. So remember, HDL is our good cholesterol and LDL is our bad cholesterol. Avocados contain monounsaturated fats and also fiber, which can help to lower those bad LDL cholesterol levels. Oily fish, so really good sources of unsaturated fat. I mentioned salmon, mackerel, herring, and trout. They're just some examples of oily fish, and ideally we want to be having 1 to 2 portions of this a week. Next, we have whole grains. So when we think back to the Eat Well guide, our starchy carbohydrate section, ideally we want to be having whole grain varieties. So these are things like brown rice, whole grain pasta, whole grain bread, rather than your white rice and white bread. So this is increased consumption of whole grains is linked to a lower risk of heart disease. And things like oats and also barley contain beta-glucan, which can lower our LDL cholesterol levels. Next, we have legumes. So legumes are things like beans and pulses, so kidney beans, chickpeas, lentils, and they can help to lower those bad LDL cholesterol levels as well. Then we have olive oil. So again, an unsaturated fat, really good source of unsaturated fat, and that can help to increase our HDLs. And then lastly, we have nuts. So another really good source of unsaturated fats, also can be a source of protein and really good for an afternoon snack. So next time you're reaching for a chocolate bar, why not reach for a handful of mixed nuts instead? So nuts are rich in fibre and unsaturated fats, which can help to decrease our cholesterol levels, as well as different minerals, which are linked to increased heart health. So those are some of the key foods that you can look out for. Have a think about your diet currently. Are you eating any of those? Or if none, why not next time you're doing your weekly shop, pick up a bag of whole grain rice instead of white rice, or get some nuts as snacks instead. So now we'll move on to stress and cholesterol and talk about the hidden link between the two. So when we are stressed, our body goes into something called fight or flight mode. And this is when hormones such as adrenaline and cortisol are released. These chemical messengers then enter our bloodstream, and they can temporarily increase things like our blood sugar levels, our blood pressure, our cholesterol levels, and also our heart rate. In the short term, stress can be fine and helpful and almost act as a motivator, but over time it can really take its toll on the body. When we're stressed, we might turn to unhealthy habits. This could be drinking alcohol. So remember, our recommended amount of alcohol consumption each week is only 14 units. So this is 6 glasses of wine a week or 6 pints of beer. Whereas when we're stressed, we might think, oh, I'll have a glass of wine at the end of the day. But if you're doing that every day, having more than one, you're soon going to be consuming more than 14 units. We also might reach for comfort foods, comfort eating. So foods, again, high in saturated fats. They're all the yummy ones, the ones we like to turn to. And obviously, as you can see, a longer period of time of excessive consumption of these can lead to things like weight gain, increasing our risk of type 2 diabetes, which are all risk factors for heart disease and high cholesterol. When we're stressed, we might also sleep badly, which can increase our cholesterol levels as well. So some areas to focus on. So there are lots of different strategies to be dealing with stress. Some people find mindfulness and meditation really beneficial. These can help to reduce cortisol, which is one of those stress hormones released when we're stressed. Online, there's lots of different apps for our phones, or YouTube has lots of different meditations. Can also be really helpful in getting off to sleep. So if you are someone that finds yourself quite stressed and think you might benefit from some mindfulness or meditation, do go and have a look at that. Some people get referred for cognitive behavioural therapy, so CBT. So this can also help to reframe negative thought patterns and reduce other things like anxiety and depression. And then daily walks is a really simple one. It's been found benefits of even just 10 minutes of exercise every day has proven health benefits. So next time when you're on your lunch break or perhaps before work, can you squeeze a 10-minute walk into your day? Next, looking at sleep. So poor sleep can increase our stress and also disrupt our metabolism. Sometimes when we're really stressed, we can struggle to get to sleep at night. We might have 101 thoughts going around in our head, and this can make it difficult to nod off. The things like having a calming wind down routine and also limiting screen time before bed can be very beneficial in helping you to nod off. I sometimes suggest people to have a notebook by the side of their bed, because it's always the way we get into bed and there's one thing we remember we haven't done and we want to remember that for the next day. If you write it down, hopefully it will be able to help you get off to sleep because you know you're not going to forget it. You want to be aiming for about 7 to 9 hours of really good quality sleep, but anything between 6 and 10 is normal. People who have less than 6 hours of sleep have been found to be at increased risk of things like heart attack and also stroke. Another area to focus on for stress, so things like if we have emotional stress, I've mentioned that can lead to an excess in increasing consumption of foods high in fat and also sugary foods. So we want to try and minimize this stress where possible. Speak to people, have social connection, whether that's talking with friends and families or different advice lines. Mind is a really good mental health resource, which I would advise you to take a look at. They've got lots of useful information on there, or they can signpost you to other sites as well. And getting outside is great to release those endorphins in our bodies and those happy endorphins around. and also doing things like our hobbies as well to take our mind off that stress, which might have come from financial situations, family, relationship, or also work. So then we'll look at physical activity and cholesterol control. So research has shown that regular exercise can decrease our bad LDL cholesterol and help to increase our good HDL cholesterol. So exercise stimulates our body to move the bad cholesterol into our liver, and from here it can then be removed by the body. Lots of research is being done, but it's not clear which type of exercise is the most beneficial, but any amount is beneficial for our overall health. I've mentioned lots of research going on. Bath University are actually currently looking to do a study about whether eating before or after exercise is best for cholesterol reduction. So that will be really interesting to see what comes out of that research. So I've mentioned physical activity, but what are the guidelines? So ideally, we should be aiming for 150 minutes of moderate intensity activity a week or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity activity a week. Moderate is essentially anything that raises the heart rate. This could be things like gardening, hoovering, walking up the stairs, and then a light jog, maybe cycling. And then your vigorous intensity exercises, things like going for a run, cycling up a hill, things like that. So just something to think about. How much exercise have you done this week? Have you got any planned? Again, a brisk walk counts as moderate intensity exercise. So if you can go on a brisk walk each day, that will help you to reach that 150 minutes. It's also recommended that we do some strength training at least 2 days a week. So this will help to keep our muscles, bones, and joints strong. This could be things like yoga, Pilates, lifting weights in the gym. Tai Chi is another good one. So those are just some examples of different strength training you can do. Carrying heavy bags of shopping, of course. And then ideally, we want to reduce long periods of time that we are sitting down by doing some sort of activity. So if you're primarily desk-based and you spend all day sat at a desk, can you make sure you get out for a walk on your lunch break? Or if you're in the office, can you go to a further water fountain or a further kettle to make your coffee to just get some more steps in and get the body moving throughout the day? What about the impact on our heart health? So scientists believe that exercise can increase the heart's ability to break down lipids, and cholesterol is an example of a lipid. This can then help to prevent fatty plaques from forming on our artery walls, and this can in turn reduce our risk for having a heart attack or stroke. Lowering your cholesterol overall can help to lower your risk of a heart attack and a stroke. So what are some of the physical health benefits towards having a healthier heart? So coronary heart disease, so your risk of coronary heart disease goes down. So by improving your cardiovascular fitness, you're helping to keep your heart, lungs, and blood vessels strong and healthy. You've then got decrease in blood pressure, so also known as hypertension. Blood pressure lowers due to the strengthening of the heart and cardiovascular system through carrying out lots of exercise, which can also help to improve our circulation. Another benefit of physical activity is helping with weight loss. So if you're obese or overweight, can help you with weight loss, especially if you are in a negative energy balance. So a negative energy balance is when you're doing more exercise than the food that you are eating, which can be helpful for initial weight loss, but isn't a good long-term strategy. Then also type 2 diabetes. So physical activity can increase the amount of glucose our muscles use for energy, and the body therefore is using our insulin more efficiently. So the risk of having type 2 diabetes decreases. So what about eating for a healthier heart? So eating healthier food. So I've spoken a bit about this in the Eat Well guide, having an increased intake of fruits, vegetables, trying to make sure you're getting 5 a day and 5 different portions of fruit and veg, and also whole grains, and reducing our intake of foods high in fat, salt, and sugar. Saturated fat, as we know, can contribute to increased cholesterol levels, so trying to make sure we swap to those unsaturated fats that I've mentioned, oily fish, nuts, olive oil, rapeseed oil. Salt, trying to cut down if we've got high blood pressure. Lots of food already has salt added, so trying to use herbs and spices to add flavour to our food. and we should be having no more than 6 grams of salt a day. Then we've got sugar. So excess sugar consumption can lead to weight gain, and making small changes such as swapping from full sugar to diet soft drinks or avoiding sugary cereals is a good way to cut down your sugar consumption. Then we have food portions. So having good portion control can help to keep your calories in check and also your weight healthy. So these are just some examples of different portion sizes. So next, I've got some simple swaps that we can make to avoid consuming, to help with our cholesterol. So we mentioned whole grains, so swapping out that white bread and replacing it with a whole grain variety. Swapping snacks like crisps for nuts. So as we said, nuts are high in fiber and also unsaturated fats. Instead of using butter, can we be using olive oil or rapeseed oil, especially when we're cooking? And lastly, trying to cut down any red meat or any very fatty cuts of meat and opting for an oily fish. So sardines, salmon, trout, mackerel, they're all really good oily fish sources. So then I just thought I'd bring this summary up of the things that I have run through today. So there's 2 types of cholesterol, and too much low density lipoproteins can increase your risk for heart disease and stroke. Diet can play a crucial role in helping to maintain our healthy cholesterol levels. Stress can increase our cholesterol levels. So if you are someone that finds you are getting really stressed, make sure that you have a look at the different resources available to help. And then physical activity can also help to improve your heart health. So thank you very much for joining me today. I've just got this feedback. If you wouldn't mind scanning the QR code, I can also put the link into the chat box, and it'd be really helpful if you complete this feedback. So cholesterol was actually a topic that came up with a few people requesting us to do a webinar on, and you can put other topics which you'd like to hear about. We want to shape these webinars for you and make sure that you're getting the best out of them. So what I'll do is I'll just put that link into the chat. And if people do have any questions, do feel free to pop them in. And I'll also run through other ways which you can get in contact with us. So feel free to drop us an email. So you will have got the link to this webinar from our email, ess.wellness@compassgroup.co.uk. But if you didn't get the link and you were forwarded it, do drop us an email and we can sign you up to our mailing list. And if you have any personal queries, or perhaps you would like to book an educational talk for your site or unit. We then also have our wellness magazine. So we've just sent out our autumn wellness magazine, and we're currently working on our Christmas and winter editions. And then lastly, you're all here attending this webinar, which is great. But if you know anyone that wanted to attend but perhaps had a meeting or was unable to, let them know about our YouTube channel. We are ESS, and they can go on there and watch all of our previous webinars. Last month was vitamins and minerals. Earlier in the year, we've done kindness, reducing your plastic consumption, digestive health, heart health, lots of different topics. So hopefully there's something for everyone there. I'll just come back to this slide with our email on and see if we've received any questions. If you do think of any, do please drop us an email and we would be more than happy to help. Thank you very much for joining me this afternoon, and I hope you all have a lovely afternoon and also rest of the week. Thank you very much.